Hi everybody, this is Shima Moin and I am going to talk about a study in which a smell test was used for screening COVID-19 compared to PCR testing. We have been living this unprecedented experience of a pandemic for over a year. We went through many similar feelings and experiences during this time. One of them was rushing to odorous substances just like this cute squirrel if it's suspected to have COVID-19. We wanted to make sure if we could still smell normally. But here is the question, does normal sense of smell really rule out COVID-19? Here is a brief reminder of the previous studies done by our group. In April 2020, our group used University of Pennsylvania smell identification tests to show that COVID-19 hospitalized patients had significantly lower test scores compared to their age-matched controls, as shown on the left. Note that the dysfunction was evident for all 40 opposite odorants, as in the bottom right figure. Thus, practical, sensitive, and inexpensive smell tests were suggested to be of significant value in the rapid identification of COVID-19 patients. As mentioned earlier, Opsit was used in that study, which is composed of 40 odors. A 15-minute time for administration of Opsit makes it impractical in many settings as a screening test. Thus, developing shorter tests relying on the same psychophysical principles are needed to achieve such practicality, and it could cut down the manufacturing price as well. So we analyzed the performance of random combinations of odorant sets in our data set. On the right is the area under the curve as a function of the number of odorants. Shaded areas and the dashed lines show the range and average of the performance values obtained respectively. The performance of the optimized set at each number is shown with solid line. The results indicate that at about 8 to 10 odors, we could have a good performance for the smell test. Accordingly, we decided to test this finding in the real world and see whether a smell test with fewer number of odors could discriminate the patients from healthy subjects. For this purpose, we used an 8-item smell test which is used for National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, known as NHANES. This is a scratch and sniff test and takes less than 5 minutes to perform. It is disposable and could be self-administered easily. We studied 400 subjects who underwent PCR testing in a laboratory for screening purposes. These subjects were screened either for their presence at workplace or for contact tracing if a contact in their home was diagnosed with COVID-19 recently. The smell testing was performed right before the sample collection for PCR. Of the study group, 191 of them were women, and overall, 44 subjects had positive PCR test results. On the left bottom is the performance for each odor for those with positive and negative PCR test results. PCR positive subjects performed worse in all 8 items. On the right is the proportion of positive and negative PCR subjects for each possible test scores. In the test scores greater than 5, the proportion of negative PCR subjects are visibly higher compared to lower scores. Next, we investigated the receiver operating characteristics. The analysis showed that 5 is the optimal threshold which could classify the subjects with an accuracy of 0.86. This threshold could correctly identify 79% of COVID-19 patients and 87% of healthy subjects. But in clinic and in screening, we are more interested in knowing what the test result indicate for an individual. This is addressed by positive predictive value and negative predictive value. Positive predictive value is the probability that subjects with a positive screening test truly have the disease. So here it means if a person has an altered sense of smell according to this brief smell test, there is a 43% chance that she or he has COVID-19. On the other hand, negative predictive value is the probability that subjects with a negative screening test truly do not have the disease. And here, according to the smell test, if a person has a normal sense of smell, she or he is 97% likely to be healthy and not having COVID-19 thus could go to work, school, or university. Another important statistic for a diagnostic test is its odds ratio. The odds ratio is a measure of the effectiveness of a diagnostic test and is defined as the ratio of the odds of the test being positive if the subject has a disease relative to the odds of the test being positive if the subject does not have the disease. The diagnostic odds ratio ranges from 0 to infinity, and for useful tests, it is greater than 1. Higher diagnostic odds ratio are indicative of better test performance, and here the odds ratio is 26.73. As the last finding, we looked at the scores of these 8 odors in the dataset of hospitalized patients and healthy controls in our first study. The idea was investigating if these 8 odors in an independent dataset perform similarly. And guess what? It does. The red trace follows the same pattern with similar area under the curve. Given the characteristics of SARS coronavirus 2, including the large number of asymptomatic cases and the high production number, screening tests are expected to detect carriers with lower costs compared to PCR testing. Going back to the question at the beginning of the presentation, could smell testing be a reliable measure for screening COVID-19? According to our data, the answer is yes. Even a brief test with 8 odors performed well in classifying patients and healthy subjects with a high odds ratio. Finally, I would like to thank all those who were involved in this study. Professor Richard Doughty for providing smell tests, designing the study, and helping in the analysis. Dr. Mehdi Tutunchi and Dr. Meinu Shabani for providing PCR testing for subjects. Dr. Mana Zaman and Amir Dehan in helping data collection from the subjects. And thank you for your attention.